Today we're gonna be making some really cool coffee bubbles and ink bubbles. But if you remember my bubbles and all those coffee papers I made before that were super cool, I perfected my bubble making part of it. And today I'm gonna show you what I did to make bigger bubbles and faster and better. Let's get to it! To start, we are going to get 2 bottles of water from our recycling, and one we're going to cover with any sock. I took my 3-year-old's lost sock because of the washing machine. It had no pair. And I took a lemon mesh from one of the lemon bags I just got from the grocery. So I just put around this sock one. I am going to put the link from the blog I got the idea from. Then I got 50 milliliters of water and pour that into each of these plastic plates. And now I'm going to do 1 tablespoon of soap, dish soap, in each container. Then mix them up, and that should be the soapy solution. One of them I'm going to end up transferring to a plastic cup because I'm going to put ink in it, and I do not want to do that in my son's eating plates. Now, to test them, it tastes good, it came out right, and the second one did work with the soapy bubble, but you're gonna see it's gonna be kind of tricky with the coffee or the ink. But to get the coffee in there, I did half a tablespoon, and this worked perfect. You can add more or less coffee depending on the hue or the tone, how dark or light you want it, but you're gonna see with just half tablespoon I got really nice bubbles. And this is 80-gram regular printer paper because a lot of you have asked me to try if you can use this kind of paper instead of the mixed media or watercolor. Yes, you can, but it's not going to be as pretty and it's not going to be as dark, and you're going to see that later on in the video. So I got another piece, and we are just going to try the big bubbles, but as you can see, they kept popping, and because the coffee is not any type of ink or paint, it won't leave a mark. But if you try with watercolors in like really high intense color, then this will work. And you can also try it with acrylics or inks. I tried it with the black ink, and you're gonna see that later on, but you see the big bubbles kept popping and the little ones stayed. So these are how the little ones were looking, and so far so good. I do have to say that this paper I did big ones on the left and small ones on the right. Then I went go big or go home, and I took one of my big pieces of mixed media paper. I'm gonna leave a link to my Amazon store down below so that you can see which ones I use. But you basically just do the same thing, blow and blow and blow, and if you blow closer, you get smaller bubbles, like closer to the page, and if you blow from far away, then you're gonna get a little bit of a bigger bubbles and like a puddle underneath, because it does drip. It is a sock, and it sucks water and holds it real good, so it will kind of have drips to your bubbles, but I didn't care. It looked really good. I also wanted to try this outside and inside, because outside over here it's cold right now, and inside it's pretty warm and toasty. So I wanted to see if temperature affected my papers. So, and this one is not taped down or anything, I just water them. Oh, that's another thing. You have to water your papers underneath so that they will stick to the surface, because if you use the bubbles on top of dry paper, it will warp and it will not dry perfectly. It will just slide to the sides like the bubbles. So this is what they look like once they're all on top of the paper. And then I took out 2 more sheets of my 80-gram it was 80, was it 80? Okay, I'm gonna put it down below because I can't remember, but this is regular printer paper. You can get this at any stores just for your printer, and you can see the drippings here and the bubbles and all of that. They will start popping very soon, when you're outdoors, maybe because it's a little bit windy, but not as much. It was still, my terrace is still covered. It has like a roof on top. It's just like really open. But you could see here my little bubbles down there in the paper are staying. The ones on top are the ones that are popping. And if you can see the difference in color, the ones on the left are more rich and dark, and the ones on the right were less colorful per se. They were lighter. You can see here in this frame a lot better. And how it will, if it's better if you put it in a flat surface. This is like faux grass that we put outside so the kids won't get, you know, scrapes and bruises, but a flat surface worked a lot better. Moving on, this is the inside bubbles. They all popped, the ones from the lemon mesh, and these are the ones from the sock. They're still holding on, so even if they pop, they will still leave a mark. Now, I wanted to tape some paper to one of my boards that I use for mixed media purposes, and I am going to do the same thing here. It's just that I taped it down to see if it will stay taped down or if it will warp, because I did not wet this one on the bottom. So now I'm just blowing my bubbles and you can see the little drips. And the only reason that I wanted to do this experiment is because I do tape down a lot of my paper when I'm doing like art for my walls, or if I'm doing some paintings and mixed media stuff. I like my paper to stay put so that I can move it around and take it to my art class or keep it at home. So it just is up to you. You can even tape it to a cardboard, but the cardboard will absorb water. So I've done that before for my mixed media because I don't want my board to get ruined. But and don't worry, for those of you who have said a lot that I do ruin my desk or whatever, this is not a desk. This is just a big piece of wood I had laying around. It's like about an inch thick, and this is what I use again to move around the house because my house is not pretty big. I live in an apartment. So now I'm blowing the bubbles pretty close to the paper, and I'm wetting it when I see that it's not so dark anymore, because the sock does stay bubbly but the color kind of fades. So you're gonna have to recharge like the cuffiness in the sock so that you get better marks. And if you blow, you're gonna see me here blow kind of far, but at the same time close to the paper. See, it's like an inch away, and you get really fine bubbles and not too much big bubbles on top. The top ones again are gonna pop, and the ones on the bottom are the ones that are going to leave the mark. So don't worry about this. Is actually better for windy places, but this is really close to the paper. I barely leave any space, and then I blew some more bubbles on top just to protect the ones from the bottom. And now I'm blowing from far away so that you can see that you get kind of like this bubble snake. And as long as you're comfortable trying and experimenting, it's fine. This is a sneak peek of my behind the scene. This is what holds my phone. My hands are dirty, I'm sorry. But this holds my phone while I film. And I do film on my iPhone. I think it's the XR or the RX or whatever. I'm not techie at all. But if you're interested, I'll leave it down in the description below, because I do get some questions about where I film and how I do it and what I use. So this is it. And going now to the ink part of the bubbles, here's where I transfer from my kids' plate to like an art cup that I use, that I recycle over and over because it's plastic, really thick plastic. I did 2 drops of this black ink, and it again depends on how you like your marks to be. I was hoping it was gonna be dark, but kind of like a gray kind of dark. And this was really light. Like you could barely see the ones on the right. You can only see the ones on the left. So I added 2 more drops, and I just mixed it up again and hoped that this will leave a little bit of a darker gray tone to it and not so much the black, but I wasn't going for black. So if you want to go for black, use more ink or, you know, more color in your paper. Now I went right to left and left to right just to because I was noticing that I got the darker tones at the beginning and the lighter tones at the end, and I wanted to mix it up a little bit. And then I tried in my regular printer paper again, and I did not wet this one on the bottom because I noticed that with the ink, it was being, the bubbles were denser, they were like, they weighed more. Now for the ink, I did try again with the lemon mesh bottle, and it left a mark even if they popped. And I guess if I kept on blowing my bubbles, I would keep leaving marks, but it was way too much effort for what I wanted and what I thought it was gonna look like. So at the end, I wish I had tried the big ink bubbles in my mixed media paper, but oh well, maybe next time, right? So this is what the paper looked like. That thing blew off. I don't know what that was. I think that's like the dried up coffee from the top, keeping the coffee on the bottom real wet. So I used my heat gun to kind of finish drying that up, and then I used a napkin to suck up all that extra coffee puddles that I had. I'm sorry, sometimes I am not patient. If you want to wait, you could, but these was gonna dry up to be sticky because I already worked with paper so much and for so long that I already know sometimes how it's going to react. So I dried them up, and then I rolled this paper towel roll on top of it just to soak up a little bit more of that. And I kind of sort of dried it a little bit more, got it, to a point that I could actually rub on top of the paper and it wouldn't smudge all over the place. And I think that helped get rid of that extra stuff that was on top that, you had to rub it to get it off. I don't think I am going to use these papers to write on top of. These are probably going to be some frames for my house. So I don't know, maybe I'll sew on that. If you want to see what I do with this, let me know and I'll make sure to film it before I make them. So this is what the papers look like. One of them, the one that was not taped down, and I think it was pretty good for being outdoors and for this kind of bubbles and experimenting. I really like it. It's much easier than the method I used before to do my bubbles. And I really, really love how quick and easy it was to do it. I mean, you saw it, just soapy water and a bit of a lot stock and recycled bottle. This is what the small bubbles looked in the 80-gram paper or the printed paper. I don't know why I keep saying 80 grams. I'll just make sure and put it in the description so you know exactly the weight of it. But this is the regular printer paper, and you can see you can use this in your junk journals or in your journals or your art projects or mixed media projects. Even for collage, I think this will be really pretty because it's very lightweight and it's not as thick, and you can totally write on top of this because it's just, bubbly, coffee paper. And just as long as it's not thick and gummy and gooey, you can write on top of this. And I will totally recommend the Microns by Sakura because they do not bleach out when you wet them if you want to keep working as an art project. This is the mixed media papers and the bubbles indoors, and they look lovely. I mean, they're very good, and you can totally see here the difference in color. I used the same exact amount of coffee, and you saw me blow the bubbles, but the coffee absorbs the color differently, and the thicker one, it's totally my type, my style. So I really, really like my mixed media paper. You spend a little bit, but you gain a lot, and this is my failed big coffee bubbles. So anyways, these are the papers that I tried with the coffee indoors, and I mean outdoors and indoors, and this one is the one that I taped down and I left inside. You can immediately see here that you get a better print, but I was surprised that the tape didn't hold to the wetness of the bubbles because I guess they're too wet for too long. but it left a lovely mark when it went down and underneath my tape. It's a really cool texture. It's really bad that you can't feel the texture on a video, obviously, but I try my best to kind of show it to you. It's really, really nice. So I'm not sure if this is gonna be of help in my mixed media stuff, but if I ever want this texture, I just have to tape some paper down and put, you know, coffee in there. But look how pretty that is. Look at the contrast between the bubbles and that texture left by the tape and the coffee trapped in there. So these are dry, even though they look like they're wet. They're just a lot darker. And look how pretty this shape is. This looks like a worm, and that looks like a bunch of eggs or cells or something, like the worm going back to the eggs. I don't know, me and my imagination. But I really love this contrast. Like, look at that. It's just so pretty. And you can feel it when you touch it. So, anyways, this is what the paper looks like, and I rubbed it to get all of that extra plasticky material on it. It's not plastic, it's like the soapy material that dried up on top. I just rubbed it to get it off, and you can see here that I'm showing you that it's just the imprint is darker there because there was a puddle. So I guess if you have your patience, you can just leave it for longer, and that will be the two papers, the one that dried outside and the one that dried inside. I like both of them, and tell me which one you like more. Maybe you have a favorite, inside or outside, taped or not taped. I really love them both. And these are the other ones. Now, changing gears to inky papers. These looks like lizard skin. They don't look like bubbles, and it's flat and it doesn't have any residue on top. It's just basically paper that you watercolored on, in this case with ink, and it looks like snake skin maybe, or lizard print. It's a new discovery. This is a happy accident. No bubbles, but look at that texture. That's amazing. I mean, I can totally imagine using this in my mixed media or my journals. These are the bubbles that I did in the regular printer paper. It just looks like a mess, but you could see the circles. I guess if you use darker, or, you know, if you use color paper, I don't know. But I didn't really love or like the ones on regular paper. And now, just to have fun, I'm going to show you the difference between the bubbles that you can see in the coffee and the ones from the ink. Like, you could totally see the difference here. Look at that. It's not bubbles. It's like lizard print versus bubble print. But anyways, this is all for me today, you guys. I hope you really like it. And now go blow your own bubbles. And I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching, and have an amazing day. Bye!